Rina had never known stability. As a young Luxari, a race of nomadic, cosmic-powered beings, she'd grown up drifting from one world to another. But nothing in her life had prepared her for the harshness of Dead End Island. Her adoptive father, Drak, a ruthless smuggler who valued her only for the energy she could produce, had abandoned her there without a second thought when her powers began to wane. "Don't waste my time with weakness," he had sneered, shoving her to the ground as he turned back to his ship. "You'll die here or learn to live without being a burden." And with that, he left her alone. Dead End Island was as bleak as its name suggested. The landscape was barren, covered in scraggly plants with sharp, spiny edges and rocks jagged enough to shred any creature that dared wander through. Rina's skin, once vibrant blue and speckled with star-like lights, had begun to fade to a dull gray as her cosmic energy weakened. She was barely surviving, sustained only by the sparse bits of alien vegetation she found and the faint glimmers of starlight that reached her from the distant night sky. As the days passed, Rina's strength waned. The small stars that used to shimmer across her skin, an intrinsic part of her Luxari heritage, were now little more than faint specks. Every night, she lay on the cold, rough ground, eyes fixed on the endless sky, wondering if she'd ever see another being again. Then, one evening, a hum of engines broke the island's dead silence. Rina sat up, squinting as a small, beat-up starship landed just a few meters away. She could hardly believe her eyes. Who had willingly come to Dead End Island? The island was known across the galaxy as a graveyard for outcasts. The ship's hatch opened, and out stepped a young man with windswept dark hair, dressed in a worn Galactic Free Guild uniform. He looked around, his gaze sharp and wary, until he saw Rina. For a moment, he hesitated, as if unsure of her condition, but then his expression softened. "Are you Rina?" he asked, his voice surprisingly warm. Rina nodded, unable to speak, too weak and too overwhelmed to process what was happening. "I'm Kael," he said, holding out a hand. "I've been tracking Drak. I heard he left someone here. I'm here to get you out." With his help, Rina stumbled to her feet and into the ship, her mind swirling with questions. Kael gave her a nutrient pack, which she gratefully devoured as he piloted the ship away from the island and into the stars. The journey was quiet, filled only by Kael's occasional stories of his missions with the Galactic Free Guild, an organization that helped the forgotten and mistreated in the galaxy. Kael was a rogue, a man with a gruff exterior but a fierce dedication to justice. He had heard of Drak's cruelty, of his habit of discarding those who were no longer useful, and he had vowed to put an end to it. Kael brought Rina to a free guild outpost, a hidden oasis of peace and resources in the depths of space. The outpost had healers and scientists, people dedicated to helping the injured and the lost. Rina was taken in, cared for, and her powers were studied. They worked with her, finding ways to restore her cosmic energy. Gradually, with each treatment and the gentle support of the guild members, her strength returned. The stars on her skin began to glow again, faintly at first, then brighter than ever. Kael visited often, always with a new story or a small gift from his travels. Rina found herself drawn to him, grateful not only for his bravery, but for his kindness. She had spent her life as a tool, a resource, an afterthought. But Kael treated her as an equal, as someone worth protecting and knowing. Over the months, Rina grew stronger. Her powers, once on the brink of disappearing, surged back, and she learned to channel them with a precision and control she'd never known before. The Free Guild scientists discovered that her ordeal on Dead End Island had somehow amplified her energy, making her one of the strongest Luxari they had ever seen. When she was finally ready, Rina joined Kael on his missions. Together, they became a formidable team, traveling across galaxies to help those who had been abandoned or betrayed. With each mission, Rina felt her past pain transform into a new strength and purpose. She was no longer the discarded girl left to die on a barren island. She was a force of hope, a protector of the forgotten. And, eventually, their paths led them back to Drak. They found him on a remote mining colony, still up to his old tricks, manipulating and using those around him for his gain. When Rina confronted him, her presence was so powerful, her starry skin so radiant, that Drak barely recognized her. He sneered, trying to summon the same old contempt, but Rina wasn't afraid anymore. "This is for every life you've discarded," she told him. "Starting with mine?" Drak was brought to justice, but Rina had already moved beyond him. She had found a new family in the Free Guild, and a new purpose in helping others like her. She had journeyed from the brink of death to the edge of the galaxy, finding strength in the very stars that shimmered on her skin. As she and Kael flew back to the outpost, the galaxy stretching before them, Rina looked out at the stars with a sense of peace she had never known. She was no longer alone, no longer an outcast. She was part of something vast, something powerful, and she was ready for whatever lay ahead. Together, they flew into the stars, a team of heroes born from hardship, ready to light up the darkest corners of the galaxy.